Hey guys, it's Kusi. Because you guys are always so supportive about the long time format that is my Zero to Hero series, but put together in some big movie video, I will not deny you this treat at all. Hey, so you want to use a defensive or something? So you're telling me we're gonna deplete the key in 2026 due to lack of damage? Come on, take it down. Take it down. Take it down! Am I the only one with a brain in here?
No?
Lel, 231 for a 10. Good luck, buddy. Huh? With that, welcome to the Holy Paladin series of Season 1 in Midnight, which had some unbelievable things happen, quite frankly. From funny fails to facepalm moments, right into me not playing mouse overhealing, which triggered a lot more people than I thought of, so there's always something that can be viewed as disturbing. Yo dude, oh my mama, there was no tornado. So, with only one further ado, make sure to like the video as it really helps out the channel. And hey, oh, sorry for that. If you're really into it, check out the live stream over on Twitch, because I will return to streaming super soon. Peace. Yeah. I play heal. Bunch of crybabies. How difficult can it be, huh? Hi guys, it's Kusi. So because everyone and their fat Aunt Becky are doing the fent lean when trying to convince me that healing is super difficult, and even with the current state of Mythic Plus is nothing to be messed with, I decided to dust off my Soraka main gameplay and went for a full-blown healer to show you what's up. This absolute giga chat of a Paladin is not max level, so Fabtribution has to get it done. Quick disclaimer, I would have even played the least played healer in the game, just like I did a Dragonflight to prove a point. But boy howdy did they shaft the Evoker the long way by removing Spirit Bloom. Great ass gameplay, dude. Instead, we are moving with a healer, which changes actually positively affect me. Crusader Strike is gone. Kicks for Holy Power, gone. Long gone are the days of playing half a red paladin just so you can spam those glory hole heals in a rapid fire manner. Instead, in order to get holy power to use for healing spells, you have to, and get this, right? Heal! But I talk about the actual gameplay once I figure it out. Now, in order to not bore you with gameplay that isn't Holy Paladin, because you need to be a different kind of degen to do praise or delves as a healer, I put that stuff in the background and we quickly go through the rules of this series. So don't be confused that you see Red Paladin, we are playing Holy. In order to put this puppy into the Zero to Hero category, we obviously talk about rule number 1 being no raid.io connection. It's a fresh character I leveled during the Legion remix, so don't worry about that. Also, my account is even less up to date than my personal hygiene when GTA 6 comes out, so there's absolutely nothing to worry about for you. Furthermore, no friend list usage. Like your sex life, we go solo all day. With that being said, there's a chance I will join the guild for social stuff, but most likely that ain't gonna happen. I just mention it here just in case. You know, if somebody asks me with a funny name, I can't say no. Rule number 4 is very simple. We only apply to other people's keys. I want the true pug life. I don't want any control on who's joining my keys. If it goes sideways, you're going to have a great time. Oh, and stop scratching my nutsack with your shitty mouse overcasting. I'm old-fashioned like that. I click first and cast second. For goals, I'm willing to commit a bit longer than last time. How about 3k? I'm in this to prove to you guys that you are just talking shit, so let's do it the right way. Now, with that being said, this would be the moment I tell you how long I had to look for a key that goes as sideways as the one I teased you with in the intro. But the truth is, it was the very first damn key. 232 item level just by doing the weekly routine of delves, world tours and praise. So I thought we go in strong right away. So let's talk about what happened. For my own personal experiment, I didn't inspect any of these people beforehand. I wanted to get the raw experience, and I think I'm going to keep doing that in the future. And so we start off with our usual big pull. Into lust, into pew pew, into chain pulling even more to set the tone for the run. Bruh. Or maybe not. Guess it's gonna be one of those keys, huh? Well, considering I just spec'd heal before the dungeon, I might take this opportunity to get used to my buttons again. The important buttons are the following: Beacon of Light and Beacon of Faith. If marked by the beacons, all my heals duplicate any heal on any other target with a lowered effect. Meaning instead of actually AoE heal, you always have some sort of cleave healing instead, if that makes sense. My idea here is to put 1 on the tank and 1 onto a target I might consider squishy. In this case a boomkin, as they don't have any defenses besides the tree hoodie. Another good idea is to just put one onto a ranged player due to your mastery. Little did I know, I was about to spam heal the shit out of this tank, which brings me to the major healing spells that we will deal with. 3 of which are generating holy power on use, which is a short cast time heal called Flash of Light. We got our bread and butter in Holy Shock, which can be used both offensively and defensively to generate holy power, and a spell that absolutely defines a healer's power. Holy Light at Midnight is the absolute omega heal. It heals so much and easily tops most DPS in one cast. However, it costs a shitload of mana too. It's like 8% or something. Judgment doesn't really heal, but also grants a holy power, so I'm gonna put that into the honorable mention category. The gathered holy power we can use in 3 different ways. Light of Dawn, which is a straight AoE heal, Shield of Righteous as a DPS spell, and to regain some mana in case we got nothing going on, and Word of Glory, which gets rebranded into Eternal Flame when using the Herald of the Sun hero talent, which we do right now. That's pretty much the gist of it when it comes to the gameplay, because if I talk about every damn external utility spell that Paladin has to offer, we won't have time to look at this incredible run instead. Now again, I want to make perfectly clear, I don't know these dudes. They are not paid actors, or if so, not on my payroll, and I joined as the last person into this party. So it's safe to say, I had no idea what's happening here. But I absolutely knew that I was very close to losing my shit more often than I'd like to admit. I am also a big fan of this new low-key affix that not only highlights the mobs that the game recommends pulling, it also nerfs these very same mobs to give an even easier experience. Which doesn't matter at all if you just ignore them and pull other stuff. Disregarding, this tank stayed absolutely true to his pacing. 1 pack at a time, don't overdo it, and the HP bouncing around just like it's normal for a blood decay. So you best believe I took the time to put more buttons in my interface that I was missing. But eventually the slow and steady type of playing only got us this far. While closing the final rift for the second boss to spawn, we made a crucial mistake, which is ignoring the pad. And you already know, considering how menacing they look at us, that we are going to body pull them. Alongside the boss that spawned because the elemental died. It's always either a hunter or a pigeon, man. I'm telling you. First wipe. No words needed to be spoken. Everybody knew what the problem was, so we went again, and these 4 mobs walking around the boss took absolutely care of us. Chrissy, you mean you took care of them, right?
No.
Meant what I said, and I said what I meant. No effing idea what happened there. I did pretty much no damage. They had no chill with Raging Boner, and none with me either. So attempt number 3. Bro, you can't write this shit. After relogging due to Blizzard's grade A coding game, we finally took down this nasty squad of assassins who took already more lives than your granddad in Nam. Until I figured out, we are missing one. Apparently, he was on the toilet, during a run that's already close, so I got a bit snappy, as a healer should. Yet, as a smart man, and an even smarter gamer, I took this time to reconsider life choices. What brought me to this? Why is one going to shit during a Mythic Plus run, and how outrageous is that boner? Until we eventually 4-manned the fight for 50 seconds straight. Why 50 seconds? Because that's the time it took for me to figure out that healers do not have any kicks anymore, which means I was at the mercy of the slow pulling tank, Muppet Boy B, and the chicken dude from Family Guy to kick that damn mana ray in order to not wipe the party. What the actual fuck just happened?
I don't know, Jeff.
Now, you don't understand what this means. This means this group of, I dare to say it, gamers joined an elite circle of only 2% of the player base. Because only 2% of all +2 keys are not timed. It ain't world first, but it gets me some kind of attention. Considering how my keys went so far during this expansion, this was an absolute fever dream of a run. And I started to understand what the fuss is about, because I felt absolutely helpless during that boss fight. This was my first key as a healer, so let's see what awaits us next. Mizara Caverns is one of these dungeons that can kick your tank's nuts in real quick, if you do not pay attention. Having 3 casters also means the amount of kicks that will go through are a lot more limited. And yet, there are some things we need to be mindful about. The Elephant's Roar does some solid AoE and higher keys, so we need to have something ready ASAP. Those funny birds are also not to be taken lightly, since they like to jump around and make you eat their feet.
What do you mean by that?
But note, even though you can just sidestep them, some players just have a phobia of moving out of things. In that case, you can CC them in order to make them stop. Another hot tip I've learned was that the debuff those funny looking voodoo masks apply on the party is the reason you got all those fire puddles spawning. If you dispel it, they will also be gone. Unfortunately, one mob applies it to 2 people at once, so one person has to suffer. Speaking of suffering, on Morujin and Necrax, I've seen some shit over the past few weeks, which brought me to this explanation for the boss so you won't goof off in the next run. Right after pulling, Bird Daddy will jump away to put a spear toss onto the tank in order to apply a bleed. Which means for us, pay attention to the tank's HP bar, as only a few tanks actually have enough selfie to deal with that. In a perfect world, you want to stack up more or less in order to bait the traps in a certain area. But since that is 100% wishful thinking, you just need to know that you should avoid running into these traps for no reason. Queerstorm is simply a 2-step program of dodging. Dodge the big circle from the bird and then the small ones he makes afterwards. Simple as that. But now the important mechanics. You know, the ones that could wipe the party. During Barrage, the boss will target the player to send the Misfortune ultimate their way. Important here is, if you are the targeted player, do not move. You cannot outrun it. Just let everybody else move to the side and pray you're getting healed. If you wiggle around, you screw everybody over. And then finally, the Carrion Swoop, or as I like to call it, Swoopy Goldberg. One player gets targeted and the bird has to run into an ice block, which appears when the player walks into a trap. Otherwise, everyone that gets hit goes skydiving. Now, for this specific mechanic, it doesn't matter who's in the trap, but generally speaking, it's the dude that gets targeted. But in the case that you got some asshole range, Hunter, who's a Narnia, you could run into a trap as a good teammate to help them out. But also, generally speaking, if a range is that far away from a boss fight where stacking is the name of the game, let them die. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Don't panic when you get shot by arrows, and put the bird on ice when Swoopy comes along to tell you how young people are just lazy. Oh yeah, and don't stand between the bird and the charge target, otherwise you also get sent flying. When it comes to Vodrasa, I don't think it matters at all what you do anymore. They removed the nastiest mechanic, which was the dot that happened after triggering 2 or more ghosts. So you just let them run into each other and live and move on. Only 2 things to look out for are the moving frontal, because that thing still hurts, and that you don't accidentally run into the ghost, as they pretty much one-shot you. However, you can break them with immunities, or a tank can soak them with a defensive rolling. In case you get this weird scenario where 2 ghosts connect to each other, one gets killed by the frontal and one stays alive. Last boss, Addons, only has 2 main mechanics. A tank slam that creates this big ass circle, and he targets 3 players to spawn totems on them. When it comes to the totems, you want to stack up as much as you can to ensure an easy and quick destruction of those per cleave. Pay attention though, the only thing that does mad damage is the jump the boss does to you, so you need to be on your toes. If you sleep for just a second, you get hit and that shit hurts. While the totems are up, the tank will receive another slam onto them, so if you're tanking, don't help with the totems and rather make sure you don't put the big ass puddle onto them. During the intermission phase, those casting goals can be interrupted with kicks, stun, knockback, traps, incaps, whatever. And you want to get all of them because they will grant you a fat ass damage and healing buff, which helps massively to get done with the boss fight faster. But with our first time key in the books, another one that I won't forget for the longest time, because I very rarely had a party member in the Mythic Plus run that took a shit that long, he went offline. We will end our first episode. And at this point I also learned that I picked the right week to start this, because currently we do have this Saladat's bargain affix, which everyone and their fat Uncle Steve ignores as it's labeled a healer affix. Gonna be rough, man. Rough. While I purposely mentioned the lack of Mouseover macros to rage bait your comments for more community engagement, I came up with a fantastic idea for the day I just lose my mind with the Mouseover comments. Oh, you like that? Look at me clicking that holy light. Naughty holy light.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck?
In the last episode, we learned that having an average party-wide IQ that is lower than the key level itself doesn't help, even in the season that is considered the easiest. And that's coming from the dude that has both lay on hands and combat rest missing from his bars. While in this episode, we learned even more useful stuff, like how to demand a bloodlust in a lower key even though there's no bloodlust class around, or how important it is to show your support by liking the video or even subscribing for completely free to support a young and upcoming sensation that totally doesn't upload videos as a result of a midlife crisis. So please man, please, I don't know what else to do. Furthermore, we will talk about the elephant in the room, which, even though that was your mother's nickname in high school, it's not about her. Saladat's bargain Devourer, aka the healer affix, aka the most disgusting American-made thing ever since Dragon Ball Evolution. Because the game doesn't explain how it works, but the self-proclaimed chosen overlord of Muppets will. Because boy howdy is this affix easier to deal with than you might expect. So buckle up, put this puppy on the second screen and let's dive right into episode 2 of Diarrhea of a Vampire Looking Holy Paladin. And again, like the video or I start spreading rumors.
I heard you have a tiny wiener.
Alright, so because of our duties as the granddaddy of Mythic Plus mechanics, self-proclaimed, let's start with a +5 Magisters to ease the pain for upcoming affix managements. With the War Within, Blizzard removed all kind of rotating affixes that ever existed due to their imbalance in power and because a certain combination wasn't playable on higher keys at all. And they also said that they didn't want you, the player, to play the affix but much rather play the game, which is fair. Now, this seasonal affix is now in its 4th season in a row, and ever since its creation, a lot of stuff has happened. In season 1 of the War Within, the Devour affix was arguably the worst thing known to man. I kid you not, it was disgusting and nobody liked it. It was so horrendously bad. But let's start with how it works and then I will tell you what changed. Ever so often, Salatos will try to devour these nuts and debuffs all party members with a spell which is not labeled as a heal absorb and that looks undispellable. When this debuff runs out, each enemy that is currently in fight with us receives a 10% damage boost as well as a 20% of reduced damage taken. And yes, it stacks. For everyone we get rid of before the timer runs out, we end up with a nice little stat enhance of 4% crit and 2% HP. And yes, they do in fact also stack. So needless to say, we do not want them to run out as a healer, and this is our priority. Even though you can't get rid of all of them due to utility, you try to heal through them as much as you can. Very important. The higher the key, the more disgusting this will get. Or you be a toxic piece of shit. In that case, inspect your party members before the run, and anyone who doesn't have any form of Dispel talented will be a reason for you to just leave before it starts. Abuse your power.
I'm an adult virgin.
Now back in the day, this heal absorb was massive, because overheal did not account into healing through the shield. However, there was a mechanic that still works to this day. Dispelling. Matter of fact, every form of dispel or cleanse works. Curse removal, poison, disease, you name it. Meaning it's in fact not a healer's duty at all, as the DPS pressing one button is a lot more efficient than the healer having to muscle through them. As of today, or this week rather, Blizzard did something to make the removal of these debuffs even easier. This spell is also considered a movement impair. This is incredibly huge considering how many spells in this game exist that would cleanse that. We're talking about Disengage by Hunters, Tigers Lost by Monks, Freedom by Paladin, and so on. It even goes as far as to be cleansed by personal buttons like Warrior's Berserker Rage, which means they can completely dispel this thing on themselves at all time, which was never a thing for Warrior at all. They always relied on somebody else. Or maybe you're a priest with Fate. The only one who's screwed is Rogue, because they have two 2-minute cooldowns that can deal with that, but it's a 2-minute cooldown. Now, why do I tell you all of this? Well, this is how I do it. First of all, I ignore the tank. Usually you just heal through them anyways. But then I put freedom on any other party member that isn't myself, because due to Unbound Freedom, we also receive a copy of that freedom. Meaning I can freely use this spell on a third party member to already be done with 3 out of 5 within 2 globals. Nice. After that, I can freestyle a little bit, depending on how bored I am. Generally speaking, the dispel cooldown is shorter than the debuff duration, so you can easily dispel 2 people before it runs out. Which means 2 people freedom, 2 people dispel, the other one is the tank. Easy. For me this is perfect. I hated that in the past you were reliant on other people to play this mechanic with you in order to not constantly buff the enemies. Because when there was no damage incoming, you couldn't heal it. Now, due to the changes and due to Pala magic, I can solo this entire thing. Quick reminder, if you're new to the game or if you returned after a while, you can read all you need to know about the affix in-game now by using the dungeon journal. That has been also a new addition this season, so if you're in need of some information, grab them as long as they're hot. I would recommend that, since I have a strong suspicion you will see this affix at least till the end of midnight. Now, with finishing this first affix infested key in our journey, there were 2 special things happening. First, it was my 4th key done, which meant I finished up on the Emissary of War quest for the free hero item from the current raids. That's pretty huge, right? Well, there's more. You see, our hunter looted the ring, which is a mega upgrade for me, but our red paladin wanted it first. So in good old Western fashion, I suggested a fair and square 1 versus 1 by dice rolling. Yet this dude completely ignored me and just wanted to trade the hunter ASAP. I asked multiple times about rolling it out. I even sent an 89, which gives me a good chance, and he kept ignoring me. I was super lucky that the hunter was Alliance while both the red and me were Horde, meaning he couldn't just randomly trade him in the city, and he had to convince him to join a dungeon instead. This went on for so long that the hunter got confused, asked again, and after he realized that 2 of us won it, he asked to roll for it. And thus, the red very kindly f***ed off.
Have a great time.
As for my weekly quest, I wanted all the smoke. Any caster trinket known to man, maybe a shield. Instead I got... You know what? I'm not complaining. Big upgrade and an easy target for an upcoming T-set conversion. I take it. Continuing the grind, we make our way to Dragonflight's study hotspot in Algata Academy. Known for its big ass pulls, grade A amateur corn roleplay.
We are just about... Wait, Ichistras, what are you doing? What is that thing?
Naughty, naughty.
And the mob type that kinda looks like a bully in primary school. Big ass mouth to talk a lot of shit and no arms. And yet, my worry wasn't the reworked bird fight or the final boss. Yet. For now, my worry was with this dude. But since I can't spell whatever that language is, I'm gonna call him Steve. See, Steve has the unfortunate burden of hailing from a server that is known for 2 things. Either god tier gamers that play the game one-handed while finger blasting your mother on the other side, or people that clearly play on a controller while using 2 feet. It's either curse or blessing, nothing in between. Luckily Steve knew his shit, and even though I started using my beacons on ranged players instead of tanks due to the easier access on our mastery scaling, which helps me a lot during runs, I gave one to him because I've mainly healed DKs since starting, and let me just say, they get dicked down a lot. Now I will talk about AA another time, but let me just say, the final boss is so much more stressful than it was back in Dragonflight. Everything is a lot faster with way more room to fail, which then just snowballs out of control if people just do dumb shit. Now, sure, Steve could have helped the party by simply moving the boss to an area that wasn't crowded with balls, and yet I was considering trying to look for my taunt spell to drag the boss towards the entrance. Instead, I chose to muscle through it, even though this was occasionally way too close for comfort. However, I was ready for more in my own little goal to at least have each key to my name before I climbed the bigger ones. And this sky reach is going to be different on so many levels. Firstly, we do this on 6. This doesn't necessarily mean anything for us difficulty wise, but it will mean that the loot we gain will be worth our time, as 6s start to drop the highest farmable loot table you can snatch from Mythic Plus. And our tank? Absolutely new business. Big pull and bloodlust. Everything you need to know. So check this one out. Yeah, it turns out, if you don't have a class for Bloodlust, you don't have Bloodlust. This Demon Hunter also watched way too many videos, man. Claiming GG after wiping in the 6 and then already molding in a pathetic cry for help, even his ancestors would be embarrassed over. This is one of these Illidan XX triple kill fanboys who in fact didn't sacrifice anything. In hindsight, this key had it all. Wonky pulls, funny calls, crash out, dyslexic healers, as I'm pretty sure that's not how you spell it, and grade A mechanical knowledge. Boy howdy, was this an experience so far. This DH kept me entertained though. Everything that happened to him seemed to be the craziest stuff ever, and it came out of nowhere. Bless his heart. On the final boss, I was on the verge on telling them to focus the bird in order to keep the party alive. But then I thought, I'm just gonna spectate. Until I was the first one to get yoinked, and then I was spam pimming the shit out of that thing. Now, before I show you the footage of this newly attempted seed key, after I still got some cramps in my left nut from the last episode, I need to make one thing perfectly clear here. I've seen every comment on the last episode. Every comment. I liked every comment and I responded to everything. And you told me about you being able to free them the chains off of people, and that tip will help me in a great way in the future. With that being said, this was recorded before the video was released, so there's a tiny chance you will not witness that mechanical awakening from your boy. I appreciate it though, and keep all the little know-hows coming. When we are talking about seed, some things are different compared to the last run. The key level, the party setup, sure, though at least one thing stayed the same. Our tank being somewhat clueless. On this specific tank, it was the use of Death Strike that was kinda short. You see, this gentleman had me stressed out like no one ever before, dipping to 70% and then 50 and then 20 while being on maxed out rune power the entire time. I was shining so bright due to my holy light spam and having wings on cooldown that they could have just hired me for a lamp promoting IKEA ad any day now. I mean, look at him, dropping to 20% while still stay cool and collected on the 20k HPS. Even getting out-healed by the red Paladin, and that's the point you know what's up. Now, not to shit on him any further, he didn't do a bad job with routing or stacking up pulls at all, that was fine, nothing to complain there. The only thing he was lacking was the survivability, and maybe I just sit here and claim that he felt so comfy with my hairy, weak arms that he just enjoyed playing the game instead of, well, not dying. So maybe I was the reason he didn't felt the need to survive on his own. Hashtag copium. And with that, it was finally time for another damn key with a blood decay. Where are these shitters coming from, man? I could play with a warrior who just pulls stuff, doesn't get any damage, and I could swing my shield for glory, but no, has to be the f***ing Hellscream the Death Knight that probably has the same daddy issues as the last one with that name, and that's why he kept pulling like an absolute tosser and
You need to relax.
oof. I don't know where that came from, but my apologies. How about we open the vault instead to freshen up for a new adventure, huh? Big stack, 6 guaranteed hero items, nothing can go wrong. While I had to seek my emotional support politician after getting absolutely destroyed in the comments about me being a judgmental piece of shit that points out mistakes of others because they simply don't know, by a dude who was a judgmental piece of shit that pointed out my mistakes because I simply didn't know. Crazy how that works. So I was trying to take a few things off my bucket list for this video. First, I will show you the vault, as it was unnecessarily the cliffhanger, with not that much height to it considering it's only hero gear. Secondly, I will upgrade our gear to the point of oozing the determination of getting shit done by both catalysting and crafting. And then today, finally, or maybe unfortunately, we will move up to the big boy keys your mother has been warning you about, as we will attempt our first +10 of the series. Yes, sir! But before all of that happens, make sure to like the video, leave a free of charge subscriber for your boy, and then go and tell me in the comments how you really feel. Alright, so no more milking. We get an absolute banger from the vault to replace my 165. And let me say that again, 165 chest piece. We have an almost 100 item level upgrade. And then we applied the cheat code of Midnight, aka the Catalyst, to slap some big healing increase onto it, as our tier set is short and sweet. Holy Shock's healing getting buffed, and we like that. Unfortunately, it specifies on the healing increased, which might be a reason for the outcome of the next key. You see, Algeta Academy is not only a fan favorite dungeon, it also ties on the first place of most depletes with Mazara Caverns, and I bet my tank knew that. So you best believe he went in slowly. However, I can't show you this because I deadass forgot to record the trash clearing of the overgrown ancient, which funny enough is the same thing I use to describe my wiener whenever I meet a new chick on Tinder. What I can show you, however, is how long this fight went. Over 3 minutes to be exact, which is kind of worrisome. But I will worry about this shit a little bit later, as there are more important questions in life, like wind or fire first. And the best way to answer this question is to wait for an answer, and then just answer your own question with a different one. That's insane strats right there. Now luckily, this boss got reworked and now only does this little soft unrage every 33% of HP, I think. Instead of the ever stacking debuff, it was a Dragonflight, which was maybe our lifesaver, because it was kinda unhealable at some point. I don't believe we would have killed that thing otherwise, as our single attack DPS looked absolutely problematic. What was confusing for me, however, that each of them knew how to do damage. I mean, they showed it on every other boss, but they couldn't bring the juice on every boss, which got us a timer for the final boss that some consider easy. But do I need to remind you that every boss so far took over 3 minutes? In all honesty, I don't think I can even remember the last time I was in a dungeon that deadass has raw power being the issue. Usually it's the tank overpulling, people dying a lot, or someone taking a dump so long they go offline. This now created a streak I'm not proud of. Both first keys of the week I did since starting the series were failures. So what better way to get into the mood of winning than a juicy Skyreach with Tyrannical. Now for those of you that are unaware of this, but every week Fortified, which heavily enhances anything that isn't the boss, and Tyrannical, which enhances nothing but bosses, rotate through. Meaning there's always one of them active from the key range of 7 to 9. On 10, both of them are permanently up to increase the experience, I guess. But what does this mean? People coming from 5s or 6s in which absolutely no amplifiers up and get thrown into this scenario. Now all of a sudden, bosses start to hurt and also take a lot longer to get done with. However, the boss was none of my concern yet. Because of Fortified not being present, tanks like to YOLO trash a lot. And when you pull the entire platform at the area of the first boss in Skyreach, you best make sure you got some sort of silence in your party. The spell called Repel is definitely not a clickbait. 6 deaths and the tank got knocked down. Fantastic sight. The first boss as a healer is quite trivial as it's mainly dodge, dodge, dodge and heal occasionally. And yes, for your smart asses, I could have bopped the bleed, I know. I chose not to. Though after that boss is when trash will start to hurt a lot. We got bleeds and armor shreds on the tank, which for the most part they are completely oblivious to. And then there is Blinding Light, which unlike Repel is actually wrong. It's not blinding, it's stunning. So if this shit hits, we are cooked, ladies. So you just kick it, unless you are a healer, then you hope someone else does it. Alternatively, keep your stun ready for those suckers. Arachnath?
That's gotta be racist, there's no way.
It's a bit different though. You actually need to heal here. Not only are those nasty beams channeling some solid damage into 3 party members almost non-stop, he also does some big stomp that, as my teenage neighbor would say, rips ass. So be prepared for their asses to be ripped and make sure to Divine Toll on cooldown, at least on Paladin. Rugran, on the other hand, is a mix between the first and the second boss. There's nothing to do until there is. Birds AoE, boss AoEs, boss bleeds, and boss rips ass whenever the party ain't playing it proper. I can't decide between my favorites so far. Either it's the range players hugging the pillar ensuring their position is so good that I can't even see them, or the tank not knowing it needs to be on the boss ASAP, otherwise we get splooshed. However, I did whip out my raid leading knowledge from Legion, and thus this was not a problem. Well, almost not a problem. Not a problem. That's what happens, by the way, if the tank ain't quick enough. Luckily, this progress session was with gamers that could adapt on the fly. And so we move on to the bigger dungeon. Pit of Sauron, +9. I only healed this on +4 so far, I believe. But from a memory of playing DPS, this is going to be free. Totally. Nothing to heal here. Absolutely nothing. And this is without Fortified. However, due to my seemingly convincing output, our tank kept YOLOing some decently sized pulls. But with every tank that does this thing with a positive outcome, they just keep going. So we pulled bigger than before and totally ignored the casters in the back. Man, at this point, I'd wish for Blizzard to implement the mechanic that allows you to snatch random trash mobs towards you. You know, like a hook or, you know, a grip of death. I got so mad because this was an absolute stellar run so far, and dying again due to low spacing, affix hitting and more frozen shit, it didn't help.
You're joking.
Luckily, the team got together once more, ending the key still comfortably, but leaving a sour taste in my mouth. And with that, we enter the danger zone. But not before we replace our last dogshit item we have to top our item level to 254. Now hear me out. Doing 10s with a roll you never done it before can be a bit concerning. I mean, I got used to Tyrannical by now, and I'm on the edge during boss fights to ensure as much safety as I can. But trash is a different thing entirely. The good thing is that if people die on trash, it's not that important, they can just release. But with 10, Fortified comes into play now. So I planned ahead, planning to use my cooldowns, when I will use any potions to increase my output, and then I made the executive decision to simply randomly apply in hopes anyone will take me at this point. Aha! Magistus Terrace it is. The revamped version of the TBC Classic not only has new mechanics, new pathing, a new theme and some booby traps. It also apparently has a different numeric scaling, because even though this thing was advertised as a 10, it was in fact not a 10. Now, there are a few things I mentally prepared myself for. What I didn't see coming is that even with Infusion of Light procs, even with Holy Shocking my nuts off with the new 4 set, even with occasionally hard casting Holy Light to keep the tank alive, I did not expect that damage incoming. The nasty fire aura when it combat with these Pyromancers is insane. And those enemy casts are just nutting all over my face.
What the fuck does that mean?
But once we entered into combat with the first boss, I realized an important thing. I'm not the only one who can mess up. Tactical reset, I guess. On the second pull, lol, I figured that the incoming damage here is absolutely healable. And the nastiest thing is this debuff them shiny balls leave after sucking them off. I mean, consuming them. I mean, what? You know what I mean.
No?
So I used Bubble and made sure I'm the only one ballin'. With that being said, this is where I found out the truth that I didn't need to see. Something that would stress me out a lot for the remainder of the key. My tank doesn't really use self-heal, or at least not often. Would be fine if it's a warrior, he is not. A decent pull, not in size but in the incoming party damage, and I had to blast 100k HPS in order to lift this. I don't know if that's much, but it's more than I've ever done so far. I don't like that I actually have to pull my own weight now, man. I thought this was going to be a breeze. On Serenel Sunlash, everything that happens does make sense and is kinda intuitive, I would say. The only thing that you shouldn't do is... yeah, that. Funny enough, trash-wise, this was the smooth part of the dungeon though. Now the void nutsacks come into play and these suckers ain't messing around. We got Big Blue Ball 1 that does some nasty AoE, which slaps pretty hard, and then he also adds some tiny ankle biters so DPS can pad their damage up. Must be nice. The second type of void nutsack is the one I'm worried about though. Those suckers provide a super nasty slap onto the tank that puts an omega heal absorb onto them. The worst thing, the spell itself hurts like hell already. So if your tank that neither uses self-heal or defensives often, not pointing any fingers here, occasionally gets digged down to 20% with a heal absorb amount that equals your mom's weight in pounds. Big party wipe just before the boss. Speaking of, the floating tit has a damage intake pattern I didn't pay too much attention to. I know there's a dot, what I didn't account for is that the suck-in hurts even more. So instead of using a minor CD for the dot, you should use that for the nutsack part. And yet the Holy Paladin cheat code, which is instant healing, turned into my favor for sure. Man, this would be a nightmare on the evoker to heal. I am sure about that. However, now to the fun part. The final boss is the thing I was worried about the most. Because there's a constant flow of damage incoming and you as a healer are the main character in here. Which means if we die, wipe, fail, break, or getting shafted, it's most likely your fault. Devouring Entropy hurts. Unstable Void Essence hurts. Entropy Orb hurts. Hulking Fragment on the tank doesn't really hurt the tank, but it hurts you if you stand too close to it. So many things are flying around, causing decent damage, and when your mastery revolves around staying close to people, this ain't the boss fight for it. Not once during the entire fight did I feel confident enough to simply do my damage rotation in order to preserve some mana. Quite the opposite. I needed to stop myself from sending too many holy lights, cause that wouldn't be sustainable at all. But with all that decision making, that force healing, the mechanics going out, I checked the timer and I realized... LOL! Easy, we could wipe, no biggie. And with that, first key of the vault time. Barely an inconvenience, I might say. Thus, I conquered the world of Warcraft, and my grind towards the magical vault has finally paid off. Now up to new levels, new heights. As 11s, it's not enough for me to prove to you all that healing is piss easy. Come on, take it down, take it down, take it down! Am I the only one with a brain in here?
No?
Lel, 231 for a 10. Good luck, buddy. Huh? Hey guys, it's Kussi. While the weather in Germany is actually getting enjoyable again due to spring being somewhat warm, but doesn't unleash my allergic reaction like summer does, I decided to make the most of my day off and spend it doing keys. About 12 of them.
I'm an adult virgin.
Time well spent. And even though we had our fair share of glory last episode with the big upgrades and the successful timing of a key that was higher than expected, today we get a fair reality check when it comes to the puck life. Because no matter what you do, you cannot control the outcome when it's not your own key.
And that's a fact.
Also, if you don't mind, subscribe for completely free as we are closer to 1 million subs than ever before.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Alright, so after achieving that high we get with the 11 Magisters last episode, I was in a bit of a pickle. Do I just take that one myth item in my vault, or am I a gamer? A true enjoyer of pain. An autistic muppet that hates starting things with the thirst to finish them. Just kidding, we ain't done. Quick reminder, I did most keys on 8 or 9 before last week during Tyrannical, so I'm somewhat informed on how bosses feel, and for the most part, party wiping on bosses is the real issue due to how time consuming it can be. But with default confidence, I was ready to tackle the dungeons I was most worried about due to the fact that there's a lot of trash and big packs, and they hurt. Caverns can be a nasty one, but from my experience, as long as you don't overpull, there's enough time to play the key. What didn't help is our evoker being scared of another man touching his ball.
What do you mean by that?
While on the subject of touching balls, pause, Let's talk about this affix for a moment, as I didn't mention it last week. Salagyats Bargain Pulsar will summon orbiting testicles around every party member, which move along with you, so you cannot soak your own, cause that's gay. Instead you have to let your homie do it, which is not gay.
I'm with my.
The problem is, often people run away from you because they can't make a decision in order to ease the mechanic, or, my favorite, they don't even give a shit. The truth is that this affix is not as bad as the original version, if you know, you know, but similar to the heal affix from last week, for every ball that isn't consumed, pause, enemies who are currently in combat will receive a 10% damage done and 20% reduced damage take buff. Also for everyone we take care of, we receive a juicy buff to mastery and leech. So it's safe to say, you want to catch them all. However, there's a big problem I have with this shit affix. After years of Blizzard promoting independency of players by adding more bloodlusts, more combat res, and even usable items to duplicate them so you don't need teamwork, just to make unique class mechanics redundant, and after promoting a gameplay that pretty much breaks down into everyone for themselves when it comes to mechanics, they added some shit which needs you and your party to work together. With that being said, there are situations where this affix could prove to be deadly, especially when 4 people need to stand still and there's only one guy that can freely move. But again, in short, if you just stack up when the affix spawns, you get rid of the balls pretty quick and receive your thick ass mastery buff to do more damage. And if there's nothing to do as a healer, then you take care of them to provide your party with extra damage, so your casters can stand still and send it. Now, one thing I figured out during the first boss fight in here is that the applied debuff during the barrage is simply a slow.
You're joking.
Which isn't an issue by itself, but the same person sometimes has to run into an ice block. So don't be like me, dispel them. And hey, look at me clutching up the situation for my warlock here who got sent skydiving. Easiest bob of my life, baby. I bet he would be proud. Now, as you can tell by the trash pull sizes and the death counter, this was a slow and steady type of angle, which I don't mind. If I wouldn't be so scary to talk to people in game, I may would have told him he can pull a bit more, but my social skills ain't there yet. Oh, looks like he heard me. However, there were a lot of things that went wrong here. First, the incoming damage in here is a lot whenever the shields blow up and kicks aren't used. Furthermore, because I had to spam heal people, I didn't pay attention to the affix, and so did nobody else. 2 stacks went through, doesn't make this any easier. Ultimately, I did get slapped by the bats that got body pulled. Not a full wipe, but a bit of an unpleasant experience for me. 6 minutes for final boss should be an easy one, right? What about that? You see, there are multiple things on this boss that could make the fight super easy, and some that make it incredibly unpleasant. One thing to mention beforehand though, there's a lot of damage coming off the boss to the party in the opposing manner. That's also mainly the reason you want to ensure that all other sources of damage get dealt with in the proper way. For us this means you want to stack the totems in order to finish them off as quick as possible, because if you don't... Now that's what I'm talking about. For our tank specifically on Warrior, he could spell reflect the final hit of the slam in order to not get bounced around too much. Even better, to provide more uptime for the gang, he could use Heroic Leap after the slam. But he has to move out first, otherwise the puddles will spawn on the totems and that's shit. However, the tank wasn't the issue here, it was just, you know, an idea. What also doesn't help is, if you get hit by an avoidable ground effect just before the intermission phase happens. Now that's how you break a key, ladies and gentlemen. Play it nice, safe, smooth till the end, and then get tackled to the ground by basic mechanics. But this wasn't it. Someone body pulled, no one kicked, wipe again. Rough, rough, rough. 3 full wipes later, I finally managed to stay alive until the intermission phase and we got it done. Crazy how that works. Maybe me using bubble on one of those 2 attempts would have been the smarter choice.
Oh, really?
Granted, on the first pull, I didn't even know what happened if the totems stay alive, cause that never happened before. On the second attempt, I was staring at the party frames, otherwise I would have dodged this. But again, bubble would have saved not only the pull but the run. So even though keeping the totem alive wasn't necessarily my fault, I could have prevented the break. Feels bad, man. I was ready to move on to a different dungeon, but then I saw a title that spoke to me. Easy Vault? Hell yeah. This party was laughing at undergear tanks applying for tents, and I mentioned that there's some videos blowing up about no gear having brewmasters easily tanking tents due to their kit being pretty strong. And so, of course, this guy applied, and he also got invited.
Oh no! No, 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 no.
Now, usually I'd be a big fan of this due to it being a free content delivered to me, but I just came off a depleted one. Though I gotta say, I felt very safe even before we started. Not because he said he's a 3.4k player, but because he said he's a proc Paladin main. And if there's any tank that actually needs to play the game to survive, it's one of the shiny boys. And I gotta say, I was mind blown. Lil Bro did more HPS than most blood decays I've met so far. But the biggest problem Brew used to have is that they have to rotate cooldowns non-stop while praying to not run out of them, which seems like it's not an issue anymore. Even with not worrying about the tank anymore, there's still some healing to be done in this key. A lot of heal absorbs, random casts, or just flat out AoE that does require some attention to get through smoothly. In the end, over the past few weeks of playing Holy Paladin, I came to the acceptance what my duty as a healer is. You want to give your party members the confidence to freely do damage and not having them to worry about, panic using heal potions non-stop. Or in short terms, you are there for them to play the game. With that being said, I'm using wings whenever it looks like shit is about to go down, rather than to keep it for, shit that is about to go down even more. My general thought process here is, if the tank pulls a bit more, they probably have cooldowns ready, which means they usually won't have them for the next pull, so they won't go big again. Granted, that is a lot of wishful thinking, because tanks change their minds quicker than a Labrador with ADHD. However, this run going smooth up until the final boss wasn't the only similarity. We also wiped on the final boss. This time, however, not because of bad mechanical plays or because not enough DPS on the totem, it's because our tank wanted to min-max the buff you get from the Shadow round. He wanted to make sure to late kick the final ghost so we keep the uptime on the buff. But the problem is, this is a puck run. People don't know how this works. Hell, I don't know how it works. Apparently we all need to stay in the other world or something, I don't know. If you know it, let me know. Worst thing is, we wouldn't even need this at all, because with Lust we would have just crushed the boss easy peasy. So we go again, now we do it normally, and finally time this troll infested shithole. Now after getting spoiled by this monk that played the quote unquote broken tank, and also played it well, I was keen to avoid Brewmasters for now, cause it feels like a cheat code. So instead, we got another bear, in another seed. Remember the last time? Bro, you can't write this shit. Though with 10 being a lot more punishing than +2 was back then, it's finally time to make use of every second comment I had. Using freedom to remove the chains. Matter of fact, most of you have a button that removes those chains. It's like a dispelling affix, even warriors or priests can do it. And we start off slow, and then not slow anymore. Big chain pulls into chain mobs into chain dying. So many chains, so much pain. Hard reset. Hell yeah. Now the chain pulling was unnecessary in many ways. With that you allowed to have a rotation of chains going, which means always big damage. But the biggest issue however was this group, and what I mean by that is 5 melee. 5 of us stand way too close, and because the first tick of the chains hits hard already, it occasionally overlaps for some sweet chunkage on the HP bars. Very quickly I figured out that when these mobs are around, I will try to stay away from the party ASAP, which means I can't wreck mana, but it's okay. Yet one thing I realized during rewatching this, I could have easily precast freedom on somebody to even have one less initial tick of it. Gotta remember this for the future. Disregarding, being a full melee stack ain't really enjoyable in this dungeon for a lot of things. For one, people don't like to move out for kicks. So you occasionally got one caster standing in Narnia, happily making my life even more stressful. And on top, I was halfway molding already because our tank decided to unplug the big elementals from their portals, which I dealt with very calm and collected. Totally not spam pinging in panic. But hey, at least I wasn't bitching about that. Ain't that right, Chief? And if you ever asked yourself if the boss or the trios boss spawn randomly or close to players, I got the answer because we have 5 melee. In fact, randomly, pretty randomly, but always close enough to deal with them. And just in case you don't get rid of them, you can easily soak one, even more so when using some sort of immunity. Now after that I was certain the tank just wanted to mess with the Demon Hunter as he kept pulling smaller packs, but if the unhealthy outdoors was mad, he didn't communicate it any further. I still thought it was hilarious. Another one in the books, and with that we gotten ourselves a solid vault with 2 mid options coming soon.
Nice.
And yet, I ain't done. What the heck? Yo dude, oh my mama there was no tornado. Did he just jump right into the stun? Hey guys, it's Gusi. With 12.0.5 being unleashed in an absolute disaster that even had Blizzard devs ego shaking to the point of them, and get this, right? Apologized.
I'll be damned.
That's crazy. It's only fair that today we wrap up everything that happened before the patch. That includes never seen before Vault. Well, for this series. Funny failures. And then the new shenanigans with the new patch in which we not only got buffed heavily, we also buff up our current gear to a point of attempting our first plus 12 key of the season. But before we figured out that the dildo of consequence rarely comes looped, I'ma need you to take one hand off your sack and actually hit the like button real quick, because if it ain't liked, it ain't right. Now this is where we are. 4 tents done, 1 depleted. And at the time of recording, it's still Tuesday, you know, my day off. But here we are. Coming fresh out of Seed, it was time to revisit another old fart of a dungeon, and so we make our way to the academy to shove some nerds into lockers or something. Not only do we get greeted with some really nice buff of our choosing, either crit, haste, mastery, verse or healing taken, we also got arguably the most fun pull for DPS. At this time, I actually recorded it, and I almost caught up with the tank as well, lol. But since we are tree chopping, let's talk about the overgrown morning wood real quick, as I've still seen so many people struggle on this one, including in this poll. The core idea here is to not get distracted by the overwhelming joy to pet the damage meter because of the ads. Germinate has 2 phases, and I will talk about the phase 2 in a moment, but just know they rotate. First phase, every player will spawn 1 under themselves each second for 4 seconds. In the perfect world, you want to stack up and move together, so you put as many of them in one spot as possible. Which we did. Perfectly. Looks so clean. These ones don't fight back, and the goal of is to beat them off until the second Germinate hits.
What the f does that mean?
Which is 30 seconds later. Surely, you finish quicker. But during this phase, Branch Out debuffs the entire party with a bleed and summons a Restore Druid from TBC that attempts to heal the boss, or itself? No idea. It never went through, so I don't know. In order to remove this bleed, you need to stand in the big healing circle when Lil Stump dies. That's it. Easy peasy. Technically, this zone also heals the boss, so in the perfect world, you want to knock it away before it drops. But even if you can't, don't sweat it. It's way more important that the entire party loses the debuff, as even though it has a timer, it will refresh before it runs out. So if the boss takes some healing, whatever. The second Germinate will do the exact same thing, but this time all flowers, and that includes every single one of them that you didn't kill from the first rotation, will be considered the real Slim Shady, because they in fact stand up. Now, 2 very important things to note here. First, because they actually attack, they have a threat meter now. You should not nuke them the first second you can. Tanks need to rip aggro first, otherwise you get slapped, slurped and dotted. And at that point, it's rinse and repeat. So try to place the flower next to each other, focus Little Woody ASAP when it spawns to cleanse off your debuff, and don't die to threat just because you got too horny. There's also a tank buster, but I'm certain as a tank you felt that one, so no further explanation. When it comes to Bird Boy, the fight is super easy explained, simply by playing it once. Every third of its HP, it will start to rip a fat AoE that you need to interrupt. To do that, you need to slap 3 balls across either of his nono squares. No idea what's better to do first. I'm a healer, I don't care. Both sides will trigger stuff to dodge on the ground, while the wind side adds a semi-hidden buff. You see, when you trigger this side on the boss fight, you spawn 5 different looking balls with a little blue marker over them. Every player can collect 1 of them, from what I remember, and these things not only increase your haste by an ungodly amount, they also prevent knockbacks, which means the blowing wind will not bother you for its duration. Super neat. Kinda begs the question if the wind phase is maybe better for the second trigger, so you have an execute damage. Does that make sense? The fire side simply adds a stun and an increased damage taken on the bird for a short time. So either way, if you have cooldowns available, maybe hold them for a few seconds to benefit from either the orb or the stun. When it comes to trash, there's one specific pack type that confuses me every time, so let me tell you to stack the hell up. The big floating wiener will always dash to the furthest target, and the small ones like to jump around too. The more you are stacked, the more, and stay with me now, the mobs stay stacked too.
You're joking.
And it just makes things a lot quicker. For Veximus, this boss also stayed pretty much the same compared to its Dragonflight original version, with the change of the actual damage incoming being a lot less. In hierarchies back then, this was the make it or break it boss, believe it or not. He hurts like hell. Luckily, it's pretty chill now. Collect the incoming orbs while watching the debuff. When you got no defenses up, you most likely can take 2. If you have the big one rolling, you can have 3. Move out with debuff number 2, I don't know what it's called, and make sure to not die when he has full energy. If you are a DK, and you can just soak all 5 of the orbs every second rotation. But we don't have one of these, so we need to play it like gentlemen. So the key is, move out if you have the little ring. If you're ranged, just stay wherever. Doesn't matter, they despawn. And if he has full energy after the knockback, move. Stay on the move, don't die. And then there's Doragosa, or much rather, her manifested fart. Now this fight easily got the most changes during the season. This was a joke of a final boss fight beforehand, now it's actually a proper one. They sped up everything, more areas, more frequently, and more ways to apply the debuff, which then triggers more areas. I haven't found a proper way of playing this yet, since I packed most of my keys in here, but my guess would be to play it similar to the original. Make use of the room you have. You probably want to stack somewhat under the boss and then rotate clockwise, or hey, if you feel freaky, counterclockwise. Whatever gets you readied up, man. And then just rotate around the room. No idea how beneficial that is, but whatever. Just be aware that as a warrior you can spell reflect the circle, even if you're DPS, and as a tank you can send the AMS to block it from applying. It's not game breaking, but it does benefit you in the long run with a few lesser areas to deal with. For us healers, shit's rough, man. You need to be on the move constantly, and there's a decent amount of damage coming out to the party in a demanding manner. I told you it's a final boss now. Yet the only thing that's even more spicy than the fights are the rewards. Ooh, daddy. 150 to the bank, baby. Now, what else did we do?
I don't know, Jeff.
We 3-chested a Pit of Sauron. 3-chesting means +3, I guess. It's probably the most enjoyable 10 I've done all season. And then we had a Guardian Druid in Skyreach pumping so much damage, you kind of want to see how much they would be doing right now without them 60 nerfs they got in the past. Oh yeah, right, we went Nexus Point. Now check this out. This Demon Hunter is a 3k tank. Literal demon. In a good way, right? Well, let's see. I'm so used to do the first room pull with the Bloodlust at this point, and I think it's very pack friendly too. So I was confused when we started this week 1 pull to the left. But I guess the goal is simply to use Bloodlust right away, so whatever. Spoiler, we didn't. Unfortunately, this pull hurts like hell. It really does. The left side of Nexus Point is not something I will be sad about once it's gone. These mobs have 2 super annoying mechanics going. One is similar to the early Treasured Seed, where they debuff people with a damaging spell that kinda slaps but is dispellable by movement impairing cleansers like Freedom. The other one is a dispellable debuff that redirects incoming healing. Fantastic. So they actually force you to use a global for dispelling instead of just muscling through with AoE healing. We somehow got through it, but now I need your help. What did he do here? We just finished up the pull, right? No lust used. The last guy is unloading onto a nearby bomb, which nobody pays attention to because the tank jumped once, and then twice, and then died. So many questions. I get it, right? He probably farms this dungeon non-stop because of the rings, or I don't know, because he's hurt inside. I don't know, not my problem. But what is this dumbass decision making? Even if the party stayed to clear the bomb, you still would have been on your own for 15 seconds or so before we even catch up, because I can't talk about my party here, but I know my 2 Infernal Strike jumps have been on cooldown ever since I made this character. This was just grade A stupid. And unfortunately, this is a problem that Demon Hunters have every season. But you best believe he ain't a quitter. Yet. So we went again, he pulled, again, jumped, ran into a laser, got stunned, gets cooked, GG, go next. Not sure what would frustrate me more. Being the key owner having to play a 9 now because of this shit, or being the tank who tries to make it fast in a party without damage. Be that as it may, fortunately, I do not need to deal with any of this shit and just get into another key, and DPS hate that trick. Now this would be a part of where I show you any gear upgrades that happened, but the truth is, I looted only shoulder pieces so far, which doesn't get me anything but a wish for my vault. Speaking of, after that last Nexus point, we finally achieved what we wanted. And with this new fancy add-on called LuckyVault, you can make this into a little casino situation, which I am all here for, because it means I can milk content. Awesome! So get this shitty delve item out of the way, let the excitement commence, and let's take a quick peek at lucky number 3, Myth Pants. Not bad, not mind-blowing either. I kinda wish for any sort of weapon or shield, if I'm completely honest. Door number 1. Oh great, even more shoulders, huh? Thanks, Ian. And I mean, you know what? Actually decent wrists. Not bad at all. But I went with the pants because it gave me the biggest upgrade from champion to mid, and because pants give the most stats. And that now also means that it's worth investing into one of those hip leg enchants the kids love so much. Now then, Because this is the reset after all, and 12.0.5 got released, what changed? Well, first we got some new open world stuff happening, which, I'ma be honest, I didn't give two shits about and I didn't look at it yet, so no comment. The more interesting thing, however, that after buffing up the Void Forge, or whatever it's called, we now can grab Nebulous Void Cores. I hope that's how you say it. And I'ma be honest, I don't know how to feel about this. You see, these things are essentially free gear. You can use them to roll for an item after defeating a boss or finishing a Mythic Plus run, and then you get one guaranteed item off the loot table. And it kinda works in a way that you don't get duplicates. Or, it should. Raid loots cost 2 Void Cores, dungeon 1. After completing a 10 or above, you can even get a myth item for free, twice a week. Why? I mean, this is way better than the boring ass turbo boost, but way too soon, man. Way too soon. Disregarding me being unpleased with getting more shit for free, we also have some big boy changes that also come for free. Big healing increase, more control over our Apex talents, and buffs to both hero talent, one of which I don't care about. I'm telling you, everything I play gets adjusted. Tell me what you want to get buffed next so I know what to play in the future. Hey, surely Devourer needs some help. Now here's the thing, buffs are great. Free loot, kinda mid for my taste, but neither of which will help me for what's about to come next. Fundamental misplaying. Because I'm still missing a 10 or above time for Windrunners, I did apply for a few and eventually ended up in an 11. Very worried for a lot of things here. One is that I know for a fact that the trash will hurt. You can mostly manipulate it to not hurt, but that requires your party to do it. What worry kinda vanished very quickly was about the first pull. Our tank spoke through his actions and he said that he's here to time the key, not to min-max or limit test, I guess. And honestly, mad respect, man, do your thing. I've never seen this area be played in 2 pulls, and you can tell by my confusion that the door actually opens without the entire room being cleared. I didn't know that. However, because of the new affix, which is arguably the easiest to deal with, I couldn't be the one who plays the Firehawks proper. You see, when they start spitting, you want to see them in any way, shape or form. It's so much damage coming in, and it requires the full attention of a healer to go through, and it just can be cancelled with one button. Naturally, I'm using my stun for it, but it happens way more often than I have it ready. But back to the affix, Startattack's Bargain Ascension, I think it is, will spawn 10 balls in a few seconds that are all casting a spell. You can kick them, you can purge them, or CC them in any way you see fit to take care of this. Blinding Light easily takes care of all of them. Unfortunately, my cooldown is a lot longer than the time between the affix spawns. There is a talent to lower the cooldown by 15, but that still ain't gonna cut it. Now, okay, you see I'm trying to ramble around to not show you the colossal failure I did during the Ember Dawn fight. In my defense, everything's red, man, there's just fire everywhere. And I have to heal, okay, so...
Man, shut your bitch ass up.
Just roll the clip. You see, in my head, we just came from that direction. There can't be a NATO. Turns out, that sucker came from over here, slowly but surely with one mission in mind. Fuck me sideways. And boy did it ever. But hey, don't worry, this is not another angle. This is the same shit, but different. Look at this, man. 2 NATOs go into the boss at the same time, so it looks like one. I dodged that one, and surprise motherfucker, I got blacked, the Fire NATO edition. You can tell by my response that I was 1000% certain this was a bug, and I just got cheated out of the game. I'm certain I've seen a NATO I have to dodge, and there was another one. Clearly I was wrong. Luckily these guys were way bigger gamers than me, and with that we used our very first bonus roll. Both trinkets are fine, weapon would be huge. Technically every item in there is an upgrade, but I don't want the hands or the neck. Baby! Now, because I feel the need to be specific about these items, I did Windrunners again a day later to redeem myself, and I bonus rolled a headpiece, which is a gigantic upgrade. Then I figured out that half my gear is still champion, so I rolled the dice on the public trading post and got these bad boys. And with that, I was confident enough to say YOLO and applied. The most hard-hitting dungeon, arguably, the most squishy tank, not arguably. And here's how that went.
Holy crap! That's a lot of damage.
Come on, bro, you can kite these, you know? Queuing for a 12 and not having a route is kinda griefing though, right? Oh, damn, we tried those big boy strats, huh?
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I'm done with this game. This has to be griefing, man. Dude! Hey guys, it's Kusi. And as you can tell from the intro part, I'm not feeling well. I'm in a bad spot, man. With all these 10s done, 3k seemed so close, and yet it's so far away that it seems less likely to happen than your parents giving it another chance for your sake. Damn! The truth is, this is going to be a rough episode, guys. I'm gonna be honest. I've seen things. Things your therapist won't believe, because I know mine didn't. Things that make the 12 I teased last episode actually seem like one of the better keys. All you need to know is that I'm trying. And I can honestly say, it was never my fault. Tanks are just beyond protected and would forget how to breathe if those fat asses wouldn't breathe heavily after walking up the stairs. And
you need to relax.
Oof. Honestly, I don't know where that came from.
Okay, let's go.
Alright, like the video, please? Alright then, I left you with the quick glimpse into my future with a 12 that had kinda the worst basics for being my first attempt ever on that key level. Squishy as tank, arguably, and caverns as a dungeon is not a good combination. So what happened here? The truth is, this was a classic case of not being on the same page. You see, most of our party was under the impression that this is a situation that includes a timer that needs to be beaten, and others weren't. If you look at the DPS, we got a Devourer which is completely busted right now, an Unholy which, shocker, is completely busted right now, hence why they absolutely deserve getting buffed. And just to make those big dick specs look even better, we got a moving enlargement pill dispenser with an augmentation. Devourer's funnel damage is through the roof, meaning the more targets, the quicker it destroys the priority targets. Now, before you think I'm just bashing the tank here for not pulling big, that's not true at all. I do think that on some pulls he went too careful with it, but in the majority, a safe playthrough without any deaths or even full wipes has a good chance of beating the timer. I'm just saying, Devourer would prefer to get some targets to get his shit done. What's the point in enhancing a DPS with an augmentation if there's nothing to hit, am I right? This kinda peaked when he wanted to play the mini-boss on the altar after the first boss completely solo, until I asked him to grab a few on top in the meantime. Cause that mini-boss doesn't do shit. I can just freedom anybody who gets targeted, and you can just cleave everything down in the meantime. As you can tell, this was a mostly tame run. 4 deaths is fine, considering how most of them were just suicidal attempts like our Demon Hunter wanting more balls to the chin than Bonnie Blue. But in reality, this was only doable because we had some very solid DPS to make up for the kinda lost minutes on low pegs. 5 minutes for the final boss is absolutely doable, unless your Death Knight emphasizes on the whole death part a bit too much. This, by the way, is why I dislike augmentation in these situations. If one DPS dies and you can't get them back up, the buffs of augmentation heavily loses its value too. Long story short, we killed the boss after an eternity and overcapped on 42 seconds. We had some funny chat interactions then, where both parties had a point. We could have pulled bigger to make up for some time, that's true, but we also didn't need to die multiple times to avoidable mistakes during bosses that made us use CR. Now, for me personally, this was a test run. Can I heal a 12? Absolutely. And hey, I do need to practice, cause trust me when I tell you, I'll be back here a lot. Matter of fact, I'm gonna apply directly to another one. Mainly because no one else chooses to accept me as the trusted guardian in other dungeons. Or maybe not. Let's get the other nasty dungeon that completely revolves around tanks out of the way then. The ugly bird's nest hailing from Cataclysm, I think, is one I'm not too fond of. A lot of AoE damage coming in and a last first pull situation that could make or break the run. Well, technically you can still time it after a full wipe, but you can't repair the moral of the mental weak. The first pull has 2 different variations. The first is rough to heal through due to random casts going off, an AoE screech from the bird and some ground effects one should avoid. The second variation would be to pull around the corner and die. Luckily, we went with option 1, and thus, we somehow lived. And I was pleasantly surprised our tank didn't play the entire platform at the first boss, while instead pulling 2 birds down. Never mind, he did the thing. Granted, as long as the rappel doesn't go off, it's a basic pull. Quickly after the first boss, I had a glimpse of the future while our tank decided to simply not kite even with 20 plus bleed stacks on his ass. Just do it, man. Shockwave and dip, it's not that deep. Though for me personally, similar to the Caverns run, I was learning, studying the damage patterns and testing different reactions in terms of button usage for those patterns. Usually you want to use Divine Toll at all times, but sometimes the incoming damage is so frequent that Divine Toll won't be up for it. So you have to think about in which situation it makes more sense. Don't forget, Divine Toll itself isn't as impressive, but it triggers so many things. Your hero talent, or at least the one I'm using, and a lot of instant heals to top people off in no time. And before you tell me, oh, you should have used the Viatura after the laser before it's... Yeah. I know. I'm testing. Alright? Calm down. Jeez, man. But again, long story short, we died due to lack of kiting. I told you it's a foreshadowing. 2 full wipes later, tank's gear was broken and so the weak-minded, me, wanted to dip. So instead, we returned to the caverns. I told you we will be back. This time it only took us shortly over 20 minutes to find a tank, but thankfully it was one of the 2 that Blizzard considers tanky this season. And yet, with a new tank, come new problems. If you can't handle big pulls, don't do them. I don't think it's science. Since we didn't fully wipe, it's not that important, considering this is by far the biggest pull we are going to do. But it got me thinking, is this a bad sign? Sure was. 3 deaths just on the first boss alone, because someone didn't seem to be bothered by the bird's charge. What did crack me up though was the Warlock precasting Soulstone before the pull on his own ass, just in case. I also figured out another problem. We didn't play enough trash. Yes, there's trash in the end you can play, but you can also go to the proctologist when you're having back pain. And just in case you wonder why you don't want to play trash later on, it's because of the healer diff, clearly. Needless to say, because we had 12 deaths here and ended with 20, some shit happened. Some shit I don't know how to explain. I wanted to dodge the crazy tornadoes, which, by the way, whoever designed those, good job, man. They follow no pattern and are annoying as hell. I body pulled, died, and my party didn't see it, so they died to the AoE of the little mini-boss upstairs. Granted, I kinda gave up a while ago and I felt this overwhelming urge of self-reflected hate again that League of Legends brought out of me years ago. The final boss was also just an absolute buttfuck. Between big puddles being spawned on top of totems, some of us getting hit by unnecessary things, and me being an orphaned kitty in the wild, lost, confused and scared, this was nothing to be proud of. Try to be positive about it though I'm not sure if the routing itself was the issue, as we did have a lot of failures leading to this outcome. But with that being said, having a route in mind when applying for a 12 should be the least you could do as a tank. If not, look for people with resilient key level 12s to test shit out, so you can just reset and go again. Now the key owner has to look for people for 45 minutes again due to selfishness. With that being said, I would be thrilled to finally play something that isn't caverns. But it seems like I was in bad luck. And they say healers get easy in Viads lol. But hey, in case someone is looking for a chill dad guild for Delves, Mythic Plus, world content and housing, well, look no further than the North Star Warriors on Khadgar. They offer you more than your parents ever could. A stable home. After an undisclosed amount of time, I finally got the pat on the back for a Magister's 12 and I'm cool with that. I timed that bitch on 11, didn't have many problems, so I'm zoned in. And boy did I have to be, considering this G just deadass pulled 3 of them glaive tossers at once. Hey, if you don't hate your healer, don't do this. It's so disgusting to play in pucks. You got no idea how much I aged during these few minutes. The worst thing is, the DPS often just switch to new targets and then just cleave the old ones down, meaning they stay alive for a lot longer than necessary. Be that as it may, I was proud of myself only letting one person drop, because he had a bleed and a debuff. But you best believe I told the tank how I really felt during my quick hydrating sit down. Now here's a question for you tank players, cause I never tanked this dungeon on the 10 or above. At least not in my memory. What is it with this pull? The amount of times I have tanks caving in during this pull is a lot more often than you would guess. I don't think there's any mob in there that does a heavy tank shenanigans, or at least there are no debuffs visible. Is it just because the pull gets taken lightly? I kid you not, this pull is a struggle really often. Way more often than it should, considering we just came from a boss fight and he probably should have Incarn ready. Disregarding, you probably guessed it by looking at the timer. Shit was rough out here. Hunter had to repair, so he ported out, we ported back in, and then forgot to port him back in the second time, since the first time only summons to the entrance of the dungeon. Blizzard, please fix. And so we overtimed yet another run, and I'm getting tired of it. So I thought, F it. I went to the place where it all started. The arguably nastiest trash in the game to start. Well, if you have a party that doesn't know how to remove the debuff, that is. Finally a proper tank, thanks Blizzard. A tank who also makes smart pulls. A mage that uses an offensive during chains, and a warlock who in fact did remove the chains off himself. Oh hell nah, man. Not again. This was a quick reality check for me. We smoothly sailed through the dungeon up until this very point, and it made me understand that this is far from over. So I had to log in. And logging in is what I did when on the second boss, the Disorient cast went through. I bubbled.
Oh really?
And kept everyone alive like a true healer main, all while fueling the flame inside of me, because why the hell did that go through in the first place? I was kinda proud of myself though, not gonna lie. Thank God I can go to bed now, is what I would say, if I'd be a bitch.
And that's a fact.
Oh, by By the way, we are already past the reset, and just in case you're wondering why I didn't show you the vault. So instead of calling it a day, being happy about the little progress made, I had an even better idea. Skyreach again. I want to get this shit dungeon out of my system for good, and God knows it would be content. Because we had a 1.3k augmentation and a 3k tank. Now, what you don't know is that I applied to a 12th Skyreach with a Brewmaster monk who had the little notification telling me he's a bitch. And there was one moment I thought it might have been this party. We did our first pull, right? Lust was used, no deaths, no nothing. And this dude just rolled backwards and top speed.
For what? Why?
At that point, I was giggling like a schoolgirl. Because right now it's after midnight. I was cooked by way too much funny business going on today. And then this dude just seemingly dipped. But apparently that was normal? Or he just forgot to change the talents? I don't care, I didn't ask. I was happy we continued. And by all means, this was one of the smoothest run I had. Besides the fact our suicidal demon hunter couldn't wait for the tank to get back to the boss. Not once, but twice. Or us collecting more deaths by min-maxing the little running phase. By dying?
I don't know, Jeff.
But the true, disgusting, pathetic and beyond stupid thing was about to happen. I have never seen this type of lacking mechanical knowledge and overconfidence. You see, during this final boss, an ad was spawned to grab a random person towards the edge and give him the Sparta experience, sorta. But if you are a class with a jump, glide or teleport, you can easily let it happen and then safely return to the platform. And while I told my party that I sent my 6-second stun instantly on the bird, they told me that it's only going to be my bird who's gonna get killed. The others will be ignored. I remember these from high keys I've seen. I was excited because I already seen a warlock pulling it off. But this shit, you cannot make this up. Every single one of them failed it. Everyone. Which meant we had to do it again. Yeah, we had lust, but only 2 minutes. I was so pissed. Like, dead-ass pissed. Usually, I'd be happy to have this for quote-unquote content, haha, we can make fun of it, and I can have a chuckle at it now that it's over, but boy, was I mad that we depleted this key by 5 seconds due to this absolute insane tactic that I only can describe as an attempt to grieve me. This might be the most difficult season I've ever played, but not because it's actually difficult. Doable? Question mark? Oh, finally done with this dungeon, man. Good lord. I think Skyreach and I will never be friends. Hey guys, it's Kussi. Welcome to episode 7 of the super toxic healer experience people know me for. It is 0 to Hero Holy Paladin edition. During this series, I'm not allowed to use the help of anyone and I have to join existing keys instead of making my own parties to help with the never-ending crisis of missing tanks and heals. And so far, we've seen it all. Hilarious runs, +2 abandoned keys because somebody went to take a dump until he got locked off the game. We had beautiful moments in Caverns and Skyreach, which I will not show you right here to save myself from PTSD. And we found out that this old man still doesn't want anything to do with Mouseover, as it's considered black magic where I'm from. But while I just tried to yap in order to not talk about the absolute shit show that was last episode, today I promise to be in a more positive mood.
For what? Why?
It's all sunshine and rainbows over here, and you guys are totally right. Who cares if somebody doesn't play mechanics in the 12 and above with the intention of bricking a key on purpose? Who cares if the tank doesn't know the routes and plays more trash than intended to brick a key on purpose? And who cares if the healer doesn't use Divine Toll in difficult situations to prevent death, because that can just happen and is not breaking a key on purpose? Am I right? Am I right? It's just so fun, isn't it? Depleting is so much fun!
Daddy, chill.
I also made up my mind about adjusting the goal of this series to 3.4k, so stay tuned for that a bit later in the episode. Now then, for a change of pace, how about we go back to a formula of success? The last time I was in Cavern, an undergeared Brewmaster monk with a humongous wiener had to carry my sorry ass through the dungeon. So you best believe, I made sure I got one of those.
You're a liar, a cheater, a sinner,
Nah, who am I kidding? I just got lucky.
and a homosexual.
And getting lucky was the name of the game on this key. Look how well this run could go if everyone does their job. Those guys are pumping, dude. Tank doesn't go apeshit and I can just bunny hop spamming holy shocks. But best believe I didn't keep a clean sheet, as they say, because somebody died. And now it's your turn to guess. Was it A, the demon hunter who got charged on and forgot how gliding works? Me getting caught in that very same charge, but refused to use bubble because I thought I can live that. The Shaman, getting caught in some puddle action on the ground, pretty uneventful but deadly. Or D,
Who? Big ass nigga on a scooter drinking Capri Sun.
the Shaman. It was the Shaman. I bet half of you thought it was me. Thanks, guys. I bet there will also be at least 2 of you that will try to gaslight me in the comments how it was my fault and how I could have saved him. Or him. Easy, baby. Finally done with this shit dungeon. Thank the lords, dude. So let's do a non-easy one. Skyreach is key number 2, in which I got trolled in the past. Usually, this is the first pull situation that sets the mood for the rest of the run. And so did this. It's the normal pull. Weird positioning, as one would guess that standing on the edge here is kinda risky. And he gone. So okay, here's the thing. In a usual scenario, that is a +10 or below maybe, I would never doubt that this is still doable. But on a 12, every death takes 15 seconds away from the clock. And quickly apply my Kusi math formula, 15 times 15 is at least more than 15 seconds.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Believe it or not, the faith in a successful outcome didn't magically return when we got cooked again during the first pull after Rajit. Blinding light went off, and before you say, oh, you could have started it. Yeah, I know, I can see it. I didn't see it when I was playing, otherwise I would have done it, wouldn't I? But I have to relax. Unfortunately, I used bubble during the boss fight to cleanse some puddles probably, so I didn't have it ready. Hey, my fault. I should have carried that pull. Now, one thing you still need to understand here. This is coming off freshly from the devastating recording of last episode. So I was a bit bitchy. Disregarding, I was fine with finishing it, even though the bonus roll was not any of my concern. And turns out, even with 18 deaths, an absolute atrocious lust management, because we essentially wasted one on the first pull, which we had to redo, and then didn't use it on the second boss to have it ready for the final boss. Matter of fact, we only made use of one of them, and we still managed to end up with more than 3 minutes for the final boss. I'ma be honest, this is an outcome of the key I have not expected. I mean, 18 deaths means 4 minutes 30 of the timer, plus the time you lose in general because you have to play the first pull again, plus the time we kinda lost because we only lasted one essentially. This is beyond insane that we timed this. We shouldn't. As a team, this was a horrendous display with way too many mistakes. This should not happen, and it felt really unrewarding. Is what I would say if I weren't jumping for joy IRL because I'm finally done with this dogshit dungeon, even though it seems like the timer is way too generous. Now here's the truth, because I don't know how to package this for you without lying. After struggling to time the first and second +12 key, as they were kinda randomly happening during the key brick extravaganza, on a day later I did the same thing and I timed every 12 I attempted. All of them. Most of them weren't storms like the cavern, but still smoothly played +1 runs, and so I figured out really quick that 13s need to be done in order to achieve 3k.
You're joking.
So I will take this time to quickly talk about my experience with Holy Paladin so far, how I feel about the spec and what I really liked about it. To give you an idea, Holy Paladin's gameplay revolves around generating something we call Holy Power, which you can have up to 5 of, and then you spend those Holy Power for powerful spells that always cost 3. While your spenders are very straightforward in a single target big heal called Ward of Glory or Eternal Flame when using my hero talent, a party heal that shines around you called Light of Dawn, and a smack with your shield to do some damage. Yet your gainers are a bit more advanced. Flash of Light is a quick cast that does very little healing unless it's empowered by infusion, but it generates 1 Holy Power. Holy Light is a massive single target heal that even without any empowerments will grant your party members almost full health at the cost of high mana usage and grants a Holy Power. Holy Shock, which is your bread and butter spell that can be used for offensive and defensive purposes, and Judgment, which is a damage spell only, but again, also grants you Holy Power. Now, one thing to note here. I did play Holy Paladin before in Season 2 of The War Within, and it was significantly harder to play it than it's now. Mainly because the raw healing output outside of cooldowns is just a lot more, but also because you still had Crusader Strike to spam, and I thought that was annoying. I liked the idea of it to have it when you got nothing else to do, but boy did I dislike that it was the core spell to generate Holy Power. At Midnight, this is not a thing anymore, as Holy Shock literally replaces Crusader Strike. God bless. So your overall gameplay idea pretty much is to keep Holy Shock on cooldown, use Judgment for easy access Holy Power, and then spend Holy Power either on heals that are required in a specific situation, or Shield of the Righteousness to do damage, reduce the cooldown for more Holy Shock as well, and also proc Divine Purpose, which is a Holy Power spell free cast with more effectiveness because Shield of the Righteousness has a higher chance to proc this than other spells. Now, Keen Eye spotted one specific thing. You only got one AoE heal and it's a spender. However, you got a very unique mechanic as a Holy Paladin that helps you in most cases. Beacon of Light. This is a spell with infinite duration you can put on a party member that will heal them automatically for a small amount of your healing done. Beacon of Faith is the same thing, but a little weaker. But this means if you heal one person, you technically heal 3 at the same time as some sort of cleave healing. To make this unique mechanic even more potent, we got the Apex talent called Beacon of the Savior, and this one is pretty much the same thing but way stronger. This beacon, however, can also be put on any other beacon targets for extra spot healing. The best perk, however, is that these beacons also trigger your Mastery. Now, your Mastery heavily increases your healing output depending on the proximity to the targets you're healing. The closer the target, the more healing they receive from you. Every target affected by Beacon of Light and Faith technically are the epicenter of your Mastery, meaning they will receive the full value regardless of their position. This also counts for other players, meaning that non-affected party members that are standing close to a beacon target also get increased value of the healing. What I figured is that the smartest thing to do is to put the beacons on ranged players because you will spend most of your days in melee anyways, while favoring the ranged players that lack defensive cooldowns so you can top them a lot quicker. Demon Hunters, Boomkins and Shamans are usually my go-to first picks. When it comes to the hero talents, both are absolutely viable. And while Lightsmith grants an active spell with actual gameplay input, I went with Herald of the Sun all day. Both have their strengths, but with the recent buffs to Eternal Flame, a lot of people now go with Herald over Lightsmith from what I can tell. I heard that Lightsmith was better in the past and you guys recommended it to me, but with the recent changes it looks like it changed. But I don't really know, maybe they're just testing, I have no idea. I do know that I played Herald because it was more clear to me. Using Divine Toll, which is our 30-second soft heal CD, is massive with Herald because it provides a lot of extra healing and also guarantees a proc of Divine Purpose on use. For a 30-second cooldown, this has to be the most insane healing cooldown I've used. Even 1-minute Druid Convo can suck a fat one compared to this. Now, one last thing to mention is that I refuse to use Mouseover macros, and the reason is simple. I'm old. They have failed me in the past, so I never got used to it. And you don't need them to heal. There's no way. Do they make some things faster? Sure, but not really, because it's not like you spend a global clicking a player. You can click on a target, cast your heal, and then already while the cast is going on, click on the next target to weave in an instant spell like Holy Shock. It's not that deep. Though one thing I will tell you would highly benefit your gameplay, make a Mouseover for Judgement. That way you don't need to swap between hostile and friendly targets all the time. I put a macro down below for you just to copy out and use whenever you like it. Now let me be completely honest here. I absolutely love Holy Paladin. I really do. It's everything I want from a healer. Direct heals without any need to rely on HOTS or heal somebody over a course of 18 minutes. You apply a Holy Light, the target is full. Eternal Flame, which is your Wall of Glory with Herald, target is full. Flash of Light with Infusion of Light, target full. Not to mention all the insane tools you got for yourself or your party to constantly reduce damage taken for so much. No other healer can even fathom this stuff. Blessing of Sacrifice to help with damage intake. Blessing of Freedom to help with movement issues, which include the Dispel affix and nasty spells like the Chains and the early Seed Pulse, or the double Frost Dot in Pit of Sauron. You got Blessing of Protection in case somebody rips aggro on pull or suffers a nasty bleed they should have avoided. Then there's Lay on Hands as your "Oh Holy Lord Jesus help me" button. Man, Aura Mastery paired with Devotion Aura for a flat 12% damage reduction for the entire party. And you got a Combat Res. And an immunity to clear nasty traps for your party or to potentially save pulls when mass CC from an enemy would potentially wipe you. And the big Paladin staple cooldown in Wings, which is the most insane increase in HPS or DPS you could ever dream of. I'm telling you, Holy Paladin is the real deal, and since starting this series they got buffed twice. The most recent changes didn't even affect me because I recorded this before the reset. But it's still more healing, especially for Herald. Now with that being said, is it a beginner friendly spec compared to others? Maybe not. Is it difficult? Absolutely not. Due to it being so straightforward. It's just direct healing, there's nothing hidden there. It's not a meta healer, I guess, but I'd much rather trust the mediocre Paladin over a good Evoker, because as a Paladin, you simply have so many answers for misplays. Now, with me having to record a session of a lifetime, simply sailing through 12s and even 13s, my original call of healers have it easy is kinda proven to me. Sort of. I mentioned that healers simply live and breathe at the mercy of their teammates, and if they want to make your gameplay experience hell, they will and they can. But if you have people that simply play the game, and dare I say it, aren't suicidal, you merely do the minimum job of keeping your party alive with the very basic maintenance healing. No stress and no panic. Because after all, the game is kinda scripted. Simply paying attention to when big damage is coming so you can answer it with Divine Toll or even Wings if you need to. It's usually just players that are the variable. In some situations I even got bored and tried to muscle through party damage without using any cooldowns, and it's absolutely doable. Which begs the question. With achieving 3k rating and Blizzard artificially creating a new achievement due to their horrible key scaling, will I extend this series for 3.4k? Will I surpass myself, learn how to mouse over, potentially lightsmithing towards a glory I've never reached before? Absolutely.
Oh, let's go! That's class!
Not. You kidding? The Keystone Myth achievement is the dumbest thing they ever put into the game, and I'm talking about the same game that gives you the achievement for dying from fall damage and dipping your fishing rod into water for one time. Granted, I don't mind the achievement much in terms of goals, because I do think with them adding even more player power way too fast in the future, it's something way too many people will achieve. But the rewards are so disgustingly dog shit. I have never seen anything like this. Look at this crap. Like, really? You gonna make me go beyond my limits for a recolored ass mount I have never used once and I even tried to delete in the war within? Or even simply KSM mounts that needed 2k rating in the past? Like, really? And you already know that with them adding multiple recolors at once, and you being only able to get one per season, that they are not adding anytime soon to this vendor. Are they actually betting on them collector FOMO players to feel the need to play plus 60 keys just because of this? Nah man, I'm out. You can take the achievement and pull it into the drawer next to "you all got phones, right?" Lazy shit idea, Blizzard. Really, really lazy. On that note, oh yeah! Big damage, baby!